She told me, "He makes me feel alive. You just make me feel safe." I said, "Then go feel alive." She did. For 3 months. Until he got bored and left. She came crawling back. I said, "Sorry, I only offer safety, and you're not safe here anymore." Closed the door. Never opened it again. All right, Reddit. Buckle up because this one still makes my blood pressure spike just thinking about it. My ex-fiancée told me I was her safety net, not her soulmate. 3 months later, she came crawling back after her adventure buddy got bored. I showed her exactly what happens when you throw away your safety net. Here we go. I'm Ryan, 31, and I work as a senior electrician for a commercial company here in North Carolina. Been doing this since I was 19, when my uncle got me into the apprenticeship program right out of high school. 12 years later, I'm running crews, handling six-figure contracts, and making enough to own my own place outright. Nothing flashy. Just a 3-bedroom ranch on 2 acres with a detached garage where I restore vintage motorcycles on weekends. The motorcycle thing started with my dad before he passed from a heart attack when I was 23. He left me his 1978 Honda CB 750 that we never finished restoring together. Thing had been sitting in our family garage since I was a kid, and every summer we'd work on it a little more. New gaskets here, polished chrome there. We were maybe 6 months from getting it road ready when he collapsed at work one Tuesday afternoon. Never even made it to the hospital. Took me 4 years of weekends and late nights to finish that bike without him. Had to teach myself half of what he would have shown me using YouTube videos and old manuals. Every time I wanted to quit, I'd think about him standing over that engine, grease on his hands, explaining how the carburetors worked. Couldn't let him down. Finally got that thing running like new, and the first ride I took on it, I pulled over on the side of the road and cried for 20 minutes straight. Now I've got 3 bikes in various stages of restoration, and there's something therapeutic about working with your hands after spending all day wiring up office buildings and warehouses. My garage has become this sanctuary where I can just zone out and focus on something mechanical. No drama, no complications. Just parts that either work or don't, problems that have actual solutions. Point is, I'm not rich, but I'm comfortable. I've got skills that actually matter, 0 debt, and a retirement account that would make most guys my age jealous. My mom calls me her rock. My buddies call me the responsible one. Everyone in my life knew exactly what they were getting with me. Steady, reliable, loyal to a fault, including my ex, Madison. We met at a friend's wedding 3 years ago. My buddy Cole was finally tying the knot with his college sweetheart after like 7 years of dating, and he asked me to be a groomsman. Madison was a bridesmaid on the bride's side. First time I saw her, she was struggling with her heel that got stuck in the grass outside the ceremony venue. I walked over, offered my arm for balance, and she looked up at me with these green eyes and said thanks like she meant it. She looked absolutely stunning in that emerald dress. Had this auburn hair that caught the afternoon light just right, and she spent half the reception complaining about the groom's best man, this guy named Kevin, who kept hitting on her despite her very obvious lack of interest. I swooped in with some casual conversation about how the open bar was causing more problems than it was solving, made her laugh, and somehow ended up with her number. Madison worked as an event coordinator for a boutique hotel downtown called the Wellington. Not the Ritz or anything, but a nice place where rich people threw engagement parties and corporate retreats happened every other week. She was good at her job, organized as all get out, and had this energy about her that made you feel like anything was possible. When she talked about her work, her whole face lit up. You could tell she genuinely cared about making people's special days perfect. When we started dating, she was all about the stability I offered. Our third date, she came over to my place and spent 20 minutes just walking through rooms asking questions. "You own this? Like, no mortgage?" When I told her I paid it off 2 years early by taking extra shifts and living below my means, she looked at me like I'd just performed a magic trick. She loved that I owned my house. Loved that I could fix things when they broke. Loved that I knew exactly where my life was going and had a plan to get there. She used to brag to her friends about how I was a real man, not like the boys they were dating who still lived with roommates and couldn't change a tire. First year was incredible. She practically moved in by month 6 even though she kept her apartment. Said it just made sense since she was always at my place anyway. We fell into this comfortable routine. Sunday dinners with her parents who adored me. Her dad Richard was a retired postal worker, and her mom Linda taught 3rd grade for 30 years before retiring. They were good people, salt-of-the-earth types who appreciated that their daughter found someone with a steady job and a good head on his shoulders. Saturday mornings we'd hit the farmer's market downtown, load up on fresh vegetables and homemade bread, then spend afternoons doing whatever we felt like. Sometimes we'd drive out to the coast. Sometimes we'd just lay around watching movies. Evenings, I'd be in the garage working on the bikes while she sat on my workbench, scrolling through her phone and asking questions about carburetors she pretended to care about. Didn't matter that she wasn't actually interested in motorcycles. What mattered was that she wanted to be near me while I did my thing. That meant something. I was happy. Thought she was too. Year 2 is when I proposed. Took her back to the venue where we met. Cole and his wife helped me set the whole thing up since they were planning their first anniversary party there anyway. Got the staff in on it, had rose petals leading to the exact spot where we first talked, hired a photographer to capture the moment. She cried. Said yes before I even finished the question. Her hands were shaking when I slid that ring onto her finger. She posted about 40 pictures on social media with captions about finding her forever person and destiny bringing us together. Her mom started planning the wedding that night, calling vendors before Madison even got home. Everything felt perfect, like I was exactly where I was supposed to be, building exactly the life I always wanted. But here's the thing about year 2. That's also when her job changed. The Wellington got bought out by some hospitality group based out of Atlanta called Meridian Luxury Properties. Big corporate takeover with lots of meetings about synergy and brand alignment and all that corporate buzzword nonsense. Suddenly, Madison wasn't just coordinating weddings and corporate retreats at one hotel. She was being pulled into regional planning sessions, flying to conferences in Nashville and Miami, attending fancy dinners with investors who wanted to talk about market expansion. Her title changed from event coordinator to regional experience director, which meant absolutely nothing to me, but apparently meant everything to her. Came with a raise, a company credit card, and expectations that kept her at the office later and later. I was proud of her at first. She'd worked hard for years and was finally getting recognized. Didn't even mind the extra hours because I knew she was building something. That's when she started coming home with stories about Ashton. Ashton Bennett. Even typing that name makes me want to punch a wall. He was some hotshot consultant brought in by the parent company to help optimize their properties across the Southeast. Specialized in guest experience enhancement, whatever that means. Tall, conventionally handsome in that plastic Hollywood way, drove a leased BMW that he parked in the premium spots like he owned the place. And apparently he had opinions about wine that Madison found absolutely fascinating. At first, it was innocent stuff. Ashton said the funniest thing in our meeting today about how hotels are basically theater sets. Ashton knows this amazing sushi place downtown, says it's where all the industry people go. Ashton thinks I have real executive potential, says I'm wasting my talents at the property level. I didn't think much of it because Madison had always been friendly with coworkers. That was literally her job, being personable and making connections. But then Ashton started becoming part of our conversations in a different way. She'd come home after one of their team dinners and compare things. Started subtle at first. You know what Ashton said about traveling? He goes somewhere new every month. Must be nice to have that freedom to just pick up and explore. Or Ashton's apartment downtown has this rooftop terrace with a city view. It's so different from living out here in the suburbs. I joke about how Ashton sounds like he's trying real hard to impress people. She'd get this look on her face like I just didn't understand, like I was missing something obvious that everyone else could see. And maybe I didn't understand. Maybe I was too focused on my own life to see what was happening right in front of me. The late night started around month 3 of her new role. Emergency client calls that somehow only happened after 8 p.m. strategy sessions that ran until midnight. Industry events that absolutely required her attendance, even though she never mentioned them until the day before. Every time I asked about it, she'd get defensive. Said I was being paranoid. Said this was what career growth looked like. Said I should be supportive instead of suspicious. I trusted her because why wouldn't I? We were engaged. We were building a life together. The ring on her finger cost me 4 months of savings. I'd saved up for that ring by working extra weekend jobs, crawling through attics in July heat, and wiring up commercial freezers in warehouse basements. Put everything I had into that symbol of our future. Couldn't imagine she'd throw it away for some consultant in an expensive suit. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Thursday in October. Leaves were just starting to turn orange on the trees around my property. I'd come home early from a job site because we finished the installation ahead of schedule. Usually, I'd stay and help the next crew get started, but I was tired and wanted to surprise Madison with dinner. Figured I'd pick up steaks, fire up the grill, have a nice quiet evening together for once. Madison wasn't supposed to be home for hours. She had some regional meeting downtown that would quote-unquote probably run late. So imagine my surprise when I found her car already in the driveway. And imagine my bigger surprise when I walked into our bedroom and found her packing a weekend bag while on speakerphone with Ashton. They were laughing about something, using all these inside jokes I didn't understand. He called her Mads, which was a nickname I'd never heard anyone use. She called him Ash and giggled at something he said about some hotel manager they both apparently disliked. I stood in the doorway for a good 30 seconds before she noticed me. The look on her face when she turned around and saw me standing there with grocery bags in my hands. That's when I knew. Didn't need to check her phone or hire some investigator. The guilt was written all over her features like a confession. She hung up immediately. Ashton's voice cut off mid-sentence. Then she just stood there frozen, one hand on the suitcase, looking at me like a deer in headlights. I don't even remember what excuse she gave. Something about a last-minute conference in Charleston that just got confirmed today? Something about needing to network for her career advancement. Something about how I was being paranoid if I thought there was anything inappropriate going on. But she was packing lace underwear for a business trip. The red set she only wore for special occasions. The set I hadn't seen in months. I set the grocery bags on the dresser, took a breath, counted to 10 in my head, like my mom taught me to do when I was a kid, and got angry. Then I asked her one simple question. Are you in love with him? She didn't answer right away. That pause told me everything. 5 seconds of silence that spoke louder than any confession. When she finally spoke, she hit me with the words that still echo in my head at random moments when I least expect them. Ryan, you make me feel safe. You make me feel secure and stable and like everything will be okay, no matter what happens. But Ashton, he makes me feel alive. He makes me feel like anything is possible. Like life is this big adventure waiting to happen. And I'm finally invited. With you, everything is planned out and predictable. I always know what's coming next. With him, I never know what tomorrow looks like. I just stood there processing what she was telling me. My fiancée, the woman I was supposed to marry in 7 months, was admitting she had feelings for another man. And apparently that was my fault for being too reliable, too stable, too safe. She kept going. Like now that she'd started, she couldn't stop. Said she wasn't sure what she wanted anymore. Said she'd been feeling this way for months but didn't know how to tell me. Said she needed time to figure things out. Said maybe we should take a break so she could explore these feelings and see if they were real or just some temporary excitement before she committed to marriage. Like I was supposed to wait on the sidelines while she test drove another relationship. Like I was supposed to keep the home fires burning while she went off on her adventure and decided if boring old Ryan was good enough to come back to. That's when something in me just clicked into place. Not anger exactly. Something colder. Something final. Like a circuit breaker tripping in my chest, shutting off power to the part of me that wanted to fight for this. I said 4 words. Then go feel alive. Her face went through about 6 different emotions in rapid succession. Confusion first, like she expected me to argue, to fight for her, to beg her not to leave. Then relief, because I was making this easy on her. Then something that looked almost like disappointment, like maybe she wanted me to compete for her attention, so she could feel wanted by both of us. Classic have your cake and eat it too mentality. I walked past her to the closet and started pulling out her clothes. Not throwing them, not making a scene. Just removing them from hangers and folding them neatly on the bed like I was doing laundry. She asked what I was doing. I told her I was helping her pack, since she was clearly in a hurry to start her big adventure. She tried to backtrack then. Said maybe we should talk about this more. Said she wasn't sure she actually wanted to leave. Said she loved me and didn't want to throw away everything we built together over 3 years. But I kept folding clothes, kept moving her stuff from our closet to her suitcase, kept acting like this was just another project I needed to complete. Here's what Madison didn't understand about me. When I build something, I build it to last. When I make a commitment, I honor it completely. I don't do halfway, don't do maybe, don't do let's see how it goes. But when someone proves they don't value what I'm offering, I don't waste time trying to convince them. I just accept the information and move on. There's no point in begging someone to want you. Either they do or they don't. She left that night. Cried the whole time she was loading her car with boxes and bags. Said this wasn't what she wanted to happen. Said I was being cold and unreasonable. Said I was throwing away 3 years over a misunderstanding that we could work through if I'd just try. But there was no misunderstanding. She told me exactly how she felt. I just listened. Her parents called me the next morning at 7 a.m. Her mom was crying so hard I could barely understand her, asking what happened, saying Madison showed up at their house in the middle of the night, talking about needing space and finding herself. I told them the truth. Their daughter fell for someone else and I wasn't interested in competing for her attention. Her dad got real quiet on the phone. Then he said he was sorry this happened to me. Said I deserved better than this. Told me I was always welcome at their house, even if things didn't work out with Madison. That meant a lot coming from him, more than he probably knew. The next few weeks were rough. Not gonna lie and pretend I was some unfeeling robot who just moved on immediately like it was nothing. I loved Madison, genuinely loved her. The future I imagined with her was real to me. The wedding we were planning, the kids I pictured us having, the life I thought we were building together. Losing that hurt like nothing I'd experienced since my dad passed. Some nights I couldn't even go into my bedroom because the space where her stuff used to be felt too empty. I spent a lot of nights in the garage working on the bikes just to keep my hands busy. There's something about mechanical work that crowds out the thoughts. Can't feel sorry for yourself when you're elbow deep in an engine, trying to figure out why the timing's off. My dad's CB750 got more attention in those weeks than it had in years. Kept finding things to polish, adjust, improve, anything to avoid sitting in my house alone. But I also had my boys. My buddy Cole showed up 3 days after she left with pizza and his Xbox. Didn't ask questions. Didn't try to give advice about what I should do. Just sat there gaming with me until 2 a.m. like we were 18 again, trash talking each other over first-person shooters. His wife Amy sent over a casserole the next day, with a note that just said, "We're here whenever you need us." My buddy Jackson invited me on a fishing trip that weekend, with his dad and uncles. Spent 3 days on a lake not thinking about anything, except whether the bass were biting and whose turn it was to grab more bait. His dad Larry had been through a divorce himself back in the day, and dropped some quiet wisdom on me while we were cleaning fish one evening. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is let go of people who don't appreciate what they have, he said. You can't make someone value you. They either do or they don't. My coworker Pete kept me busy with extra shifts that kept my mind occupied during the days. Commercial jobs that needed extra hands, industrial panels that required attention to detail. We had this big contract wiring up a new medical office complex on the west side of town. 40,000 square feet of exam rooms, waiting areas, and administrative offices that all needed proper electrical infrastructure. I threw myself into that project like my life depended on it. Pete would look at me sometimes when I volunteered for the difficult stuff. The cramped crawl spaces, the complicated three-way switches, the panel work that required concentration and precision. He never said anything directly, but one day he just clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're gonna be all right, man." Coming from Pete, who barely said 10 words a day, that meant something. The overtime padded my bank account while giving me less time to think about Madison and whatever she was doing with Ashton. By December, I had enough saved to pay cash for a new truck if I wanted one. Instead, I put it into index funds and kept driving my 10-year-old pickup that still ran perfectly fine. Old habits die hard. Meanwhile, Madison was off living her big adventure with her consultant boyfriend. I heard about it through the grapevine because our social circles overlapped more than I would have liked. Mutual friends who didn't want to pick sides kept me updated whether I asked or not. Cole's wife Amy was the main source of intel, though she always seemed apologetic about sharing it. I just saw this on Instagram and thought you should know. She'd text me, then send screenshots of Madison's latest adventure posts. Apparently she moved into Ashton's downtown apartment within 2 weeks of leaving my place. The place with the rooftop terrace she'd told me about so many times. She posted pictures from fancy restaurants with tablecloths and candles. Weekend getaways to places with beaches and palm trees. Instagram stories from rooftop bars where beautiful people clinked glasses and talked about their exciting lives. One post showed her and Ashton at some vineyard in Virginia, holding wine glasses and laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. Another showed them on a beach somewhere warm, while I was dealing with the first frost of the season back home. She looked happy in every single picture. Genuinely happy in a way that made me wonder if she'd ever actually been happy with me or just comfortable. She changed her social media bio to something about embracing spontaneity and living fully in the present. Every post was about adventure and following your heart and not settling for a life that doesn't make you feel alive. Subtle digs at me and the boring existence I offered, I'm sure. Her friends were all commenting with heart emojis, and you deserve this and living your best life like they hadn't been at our engagement party 8 months earlier. Her friends reached out a few times during this period. First to get my side of the story, acting all concerned while really just fishing for gossip, then to low-key scope out if I was heartbroken enough to take her back, if she changed her mind. Some of them weren't subtle about it either. Madison's really confused right now, but I think she still loves you, they'd say. Would you ever consider giving her another chance? I gave them nothing. Told them Madison made her choice, and I respected it. Told them I hoped she found what she was looking for. Kept it civil even though I wanted to point out the irony of her needing excitement so badly that she blew up our entire relationship for some temporary feeling. 3 months passed. Fall turned to winter. The holidays came and went. I spent Thanksgiving with my mom and sister, helped them cook the turkey, and fix the garbage disposal that had been acting up since September. Christmas was quiet, just the three of us exchanging small gifts and watching old movies. New Year's Eve. I stayed home with a book because crowded parties never were my thing anyway. Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine again. I'd gotten used to the quiet in my house. Started to appreciate it, actually. Could eat what I wanted, watch what I wanted, go to bed when I wanted without coordinating with someone else's schedule. The bikes got attention they deserved. The house got some upgrades I'd been putting off. I joined a gym and started lifting again, something I'd let slide while Madison and I were together. Then February rolled around, and that's when things got interesting. I was in my garage on a Saturday afternoon working on a 1972 Kawasaki Z1 I'd picked up from an estate sale the month before. Gorgeous machine that just needed some carburetor work and a new electrical system. The guy's widow was selling off his collection and didn't know what anything was worth. I got it for way under market value and felt a little guilty about it, but she seemed happy just to have it gone. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Ryan, it's Madison. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I really need to talk to you. Please." I stared at that message for a good 5 minutes, greasy fingers hovering over the screen. Part of me wanted to ignore it completely, block the number and pretend it never came through. Part of me was curious what she could possibly have to say after ghosting me for 3 months to play house with some consultant who promised her adventure. Curiosity won, but barely. I texted back. "About what?" Her response came fast, like she'd been waiting with her phone in hand. "Everything. I made the biggest mistake of my life. Can I please come see you? Just to talk. I won't stay long." There it was. The crawl back I'd predicted the night she left. When you're someone's safety net, you always know in the back of your mind that they'll come running back when the exciting stuff falls through. Because safety nets exist specifically for when people fall. I told her she could come by the house. Not because I had any intention of taking her back, but because I wanted to hear what happened. Call it closure or curiosity, or just wanting to see how this story ended. She said she'd be there in an hour. I wiped the grease off my hands and went inside to wait. When Madison pulled into my driveway 63 minutes later, I barely recognized her. Not because she looked bad necessarily, but because she looked tired. Exhausted in a way that went beyond just needing sleep. The confident, adventurous woman who left 3 months ago had been replaced by someone who looked like they'd been through a war. Eyes puffy like she'd been crying recently. Hair that usually looked perfect now, just pulled back in a messy ponytail. Wearing yoga pants and an old college sweatshirt instead of the trendy outfits she'd started buying after her promotion. I met her at the door, but didn't invite her inside right away. She stood on my porch in this designer coat that looked new and expensive. Probably bought during her exciting adventure phase, hands shaking slightly as she tried to find the right words. I just waited. Wasn't going to make this easy for her. She started with an apology. Said she was sorry for how she handled things. Sorry for blindsiding me. Sorry for making me feel like stability was somehow a negative trait. Sorry for the things she said about me being predictable and boring. Sorry for choosing Ashton over me when I'd never given her any reason to doubt my commitment. The sorries went on for a while. I let her get them all out without interrupting. Then she got to the good part. Turns out Ashton Bennett wasn't the spontaneous adventure partner she thought he was. He was a guy who got bored easily and moved on to the next shiny thing without looking back. The same impulsiveness that made Madison feel alive also meant he had zero ability to commit to anything long-term, including her. About 6 weeks into their big adventure, Ashton got offered a position with a company in Seattle. Some new consulting gig with a tech company that paid even more than his current role and came with stock options. He told Madison about it like it was exciting news they should celebrate together. Asked if she wanted to come with him, uproot her entire life, leave her job and family, and everything she knew to follow him across the country to a city where she didn't know a single person. When she hesitated, tried to talk about maybe taking things slower, figuring out logistics, making a plan for how they'd handle the transition. He got annoyed, called her boring, said he thought she was different from other girls, someone who actually lived life instead of just planning it. But apparently she was just another person who wanted to clip his wings and drag him down to her level. The irony wasn't lost on me when she told me that part. He left for Seattle 3 weeks later. Didn't invite her again. Just packed his stuff, ended the lease on his downtown apartment with the rooftop terrace she'd bragged about, and told her it was fun while it lasted. Left her scrambling to find a new place to live, since she'd given up her own apartment to move in with him. Left her humiliated at work because everyone knew about their relationship, and watched the whole thing implode in real time. Left her suddenly very aware that the exciting, alive feeling she chased had abandoned her the second things got complicated. She tried to make it work without him, moved into a small studio apartment she could barely afford on short notice, threw herself into work to distract from the embarrassment of being dumped by the guy she'd left her fiancé for. But the damage was done. Her reputation at the company was shot. Everyone saw her as the woman who wrecked her engagement for a fling with a consultant who didn't even stay in town. The female co-workers who used to be friendly started keeping their distance. The male co-workers treated her differently too, and not in a good way. She got passed over for a promotion she'd been working toward, one that everyone assumed was hers before all this happened. Started getting the cold shoulder from people who'd previously been work friends. One of the senior managers made a comment in a meeting about the importance of professionalism and maintaining appropriate workplace relationships, looking right at her while she said it. And through all of it, she kept thinking about me, about the life she threw away, about the stability she mocked and the safety she took for granted, about the man who actually loved her and wanted to build something real, who she discarded like he wasn't good enough. Now she was standing on my porch 3 months later, hoping I'd take her back. I listened to her whole story without interrupting. Let her cry. Let her apologize again. Let her tell me all the ways she realized she was wrong, all the promises about how she'd changed. Then I asked her one question. When you were with him, living that exciting life, did you ever once think about how I felt? She looked at me with those red-rimmed eyes, and I could see her trying to figure out the right answer. The answer that would get her what she wanted. I thought about you all the time, she said, voice cracking. Every day I compared him to you and realized what I lost. Wrong answer. If she thought about me every day, she would have come back sooner. She only showed up when she had nowhere else to go, when the adventure turned out to be a dead end and boring old Ryan started looking good again. I was still just the safety net, the backup plan, the boring, stable option she could retreat to when her excitement didn't work out. I shook my head slowly. That's not what I asked. I asked if you thought about how I felt, not whether you compared us, whether you cared about the person you left behind. She didn't have an answer for that, just stared at me with her mouth slightly open, tears starting fresh down her cheeks. I stepped back, hand on the doorframe. Sorry, but I only offer safety. And you're not safe here anymore. Then I closed the door, locked it, walked back to my garage and went back to work on that Kawasaki like nothing happened. Could hear her standing on the porch for a while. Heard her cry. Heard her knock a few more times, each knock getting weaker. Eventually heard her car start and pull away. Never opened that door again. The next morning, I woke up to 17 text messages. Madison had apparently spent the whole night trying to reach me through every possible channel. Direct texts, Instagram DMs, even a Facebook message even though I hadn't logged into that thing in years. Each message was more desperate than the last. Started with, please just talk to me, and ended with, I can't believe you're doing this to me, like she was somehow the victim. I blocked her number, blocked her on every platform I could think of. Then I made breakfast and went about my day. Madison's friends came at me hard over the following weeks. Group texts calling me heartless. One of them, this girl named Brittany, who'd been Madison's roommate in college, wrote me a 3-paragraph essay about how men like me are the reason women have trust issues. I screenshotted and sent it to Cole with no comment. He responded with a string of laughing emojis. Another one showed up at my job site to tell me I was making a huge mistake. I was on a ladder running conduit when I saw her marching across the construction zone in heels that were absolutely not OSHA approved. She started yelling about how Madison was falling apart, and I was the only one who could help her. I told her to leave before I called the cops for trespassing on a commercial property. She called me a few names I won't repeat, then left. Her parents called me too. Her mom cried and asked if there was anything Madison could do to fix this. Her dad was quieter, but he understood. Told me he respected my decision even if he wished things were different. Said he'd tried to talk some sense into Madison months ago when he first heard about Ashton, but she wouldn't listen. Said his door was always open if I ever wanted to stop by. I told him I appreciated that, and meant it. Madison tried a few more times over the following months. Letters showed up at my house, handwritten on nice stationery. Long emails hit my inbox full of apologies and promises. Voicemails piled up on my phone, each one more desperate than the last. I never responded. Not once. Spring rolled around, and I ran into Rachel Donovan at a supply house. We went to high school together, hadn't talked in probably 10 years. She recognized me first, came over while I was loading wire into my truck, said my name like a question, like she wasn't sure it was really me. Turns out she'd moved back to the area about 3 years ago, but our paths just never crossed. Small town, but not that small, I guess. We ended up talking in the parking lot for almost an hour, while her ice cream melted in her car and my wire sat in the sun. Rachel was a veterinarian now, owned her own small animal clinic about 20 minutes outside of town in this converted farmhouse she'd renovated over 2 years. She'd moved back after a divorce from some guy named Brett, who was great at grand gestures but terrible at actually being reliable. The kind of guy who'd plan surprise trips to Paris but forget to pay the electric bill. Who'd buy her expensive jewelry but couldn't hold down a job for more than 6 months. She spent 5 years trying to make that work, before finally accepting it never would. We exchanged numbers, and I figured that would be it. Old classmates catching up. Nice to see you. Have a good life. But she texted me 2 days later asking if I wanted to grab coffee. Then coffee turned into dinner. Then dinner turned into meeting up at this little dive bar that had surprisingly good wings. Then that turned into her coming over to watch me work on the Kawasaki while she told me about the three-legged cat someone dropped off at her clinic that morning. By summer, we were officially together. She came to 4th of July at Cole's farm with me. Met my mom and sister at a Sunday dinner where my mom spent the whole time shooting me these approving looks across the table. Started leaving a toothbrush at my place, then some clothes, then pretty much moved in without either of us making a big deal about it. Normal stuff, healthy stuff, no drama, no games, no making me feel like I needed to be someone else. Here's the difference between Rachel and Madison. When I remembered Rachel's coffee order, she noticed. When I fixed the squeaky door at her clinic without being asked, she thanked me. When I showed up exactly when I said I would, she told me it meant something. She didn't just tolerate my stability. She actually valued it. Meanwhile, Madison's situation kept getting worse. Heard through mutual friends that she quit her job after the environment got too hostile. Moved back in with her parents while she figured out her next move. Tried dating again, but kept picking the same type of guys. The exciting ones who made her feel alive right up until they got bored and bounced. Fall came around and I asked Rachel to marry me. Nothing elaborate. Just the two of us on my back porch after I'd finished rebuilding the Kawasaki. She said yes. We set a date for the following spring. 2 weeks before the wedding, Madison showed up at my house unannounced. I was in the garage when I heard a car pull up. Walked out expecting a delivery, and found her standing in my driveway looking even worse than she had a year ago. She'd heard I was getting married. Wanted to talk to me one more time before I made a mistake. Said she knew now that we were meant to be together. Said she'd been working on herself and was finally ready to be the partner I deserved. Said if I'd just give her one more chance, she'd prove she'd changed. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said the same thing I'd said a year ago on my porch. I only offer safety, and you're not safe here anymore. She started crying. Asked how I could be so cold. Asked if I ever really loved her at all. I told her the truth. I did love you. Past tense. Then you told me that wasn't enough. So I moved on. You should too. I went back into my garage and closed the door. Heard her standing there for a while. Eventually heard her drive away. Rachel and I got married that spring. Small ceremony at the courthouse, reception at Cole's farm. Her family, my family. 50 of our closest friends eating barbecue and dancing to a cover band that played mostly classic rock. Perfect day. Zero drama. We bought some land outside of town 6 months later. Started building a house with a bigger garage for the motorcycles. Rachel's expanding her clinic. I'm starting my own electrical business. Things are good. Really good. Madison sent a card to my mom's house after the wedding. Congratulations and best wishes, that kind of thing. My mom asked if I wanted to see it. I told her to throw it away. Last I heard, Madison moved to another state. Still single.